Welcome to the Brothers in Farms podcast. This episode is a break from the Breeder Spotlight series. This is a community member podcast where we talk to one of the Brothers in Farms moderators, Aggie. In this session, we'll be covering a KISS method. Keep it simple. This method is Aggie's formula for a simple and non-complicated, jargon-free approach to growing fire in a small environment with maximum yields. The aim of this cast is simply to set new guys on the right path or provide some simple tricks that people may have overlooked. Brothers in Farms is running a huge 420 sale on the website for one day on 420, so get there on the day, take advantage of a buy one, get one free on all seed packs. Maximise your genetic stash and celebrate 420 in style. For BIF members, we'll be having a huge member smoke day with a lot of guys meeting up on a group call. Don't be afraid to drop on in. Okay, let's get started. Meet Aggie and the KISS method. Okay, Aggie.
Hey, brother.
Good to have you on.
Thank you for having me.
So, how did you find BIF, Aggie? It's a standard question I seem to ask all the guys who are mods or breeders.
Yeah, well, I had probably 3 or 4 years ago, I had posted a picture on Reddit, and Baz reached out to me, and we kind of started talking and figured out we lived pretty close to each other, and he got me into what was Growers Collective at the time, and I was in there, and that kind of branched off into Brothers in Farms, and here we are today, probably, I don't know, maybe 2 years later.
Happy days.
Yeah.
So, would you say, like, when you met Baz and you did all that stuff, what kind of experience level were you as a grower at that point?
And I didn't know anything. I had these, what Baz liked to call was dick plants. They were about 5 inches tall outside, and one little nug that was maybe a gram dried, a gram and a half dried, and had no idea what I was doing, what I was using. And Baz basically just kind of told me, hey, this is what you need, this is what you need to use, this is what you need to get. And after a few grows and a few trial and error, kind of started to hone that in a little bit.
Yeah. Cool. So, kind of wanted to talk about, obviously, the KISS method, which is about keeping it simple.
Mm-hmm.
So, jumping straight to that, is that KISS method is, first off, like, I know you grow like quite a tight run, and you're knocking out plants at a hell of a kind of size and yield ratio in that. So what tent size are you running at the moment?
2x4x4, actually. So I have a small ceiling.
Yeah.
Small ceiling, small space. But I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, so after seeing like what you were churning out, I was using a kind of a bigger square tent at that point. And for me, space was an issue as well. So I kind of looked at your grows when I joined BIF and thought, actually, you can run quite a decent amount in the 4x2 of autos. And you had access, which was different to me because I was in a tight space and I couldn't get in my big tent. It was like getting to the back of it was a fucking ball ache. And I thought, man, I might swap to a 4x2. Mine's a little higher. I shopped around for a bit of a higher one, but
yeah, and it's kind of, like I said, I've got it tucked in a tight space right now, and I'm actually going to get a little room built for it. So I might get a little taller one here down the road. But for right now, just kind of for ease of use for me and in the space I have,
yeah,
it's worked really good.
So how many plants are you growing in your 4x2?
It varies. I've done as many as 8 2 gallons. And then I've kind of settled on 5 2 gallons right now, 5 to 6. The last 2 runs I've done 5.
Okay.
I've got 8 in there right now. I'm running some regs of that Galactic Reserve,
Yeah.
from Belenos. So
Yeah.
I've got 8 right now.
So would you said you've kind of slowly cut it down?
Yeah, I did. I felt, I felt like I just wasn't getting the quality of bud from those last 2 plants. To me, it was a little more larfy, lanky, and I felt like 5 was a good number. That if I train those right in that tent, I can still have a full canopy, in the 2x4 with those 5 plants, just like I would if I was running 3 more.
Yeah, totally. It's just about getting the light in there, then, yeah.
And that was it, just being, the light penetration and, trying to even out that canopy and not letting some plants overtake the others.
Yeah, sure. I'm running 7 at the moment, and it's fucking tight, like you say. And it's about kind of, I usually have 2 plants which are a little bit smaller, a little bit less trained, and have to be stripped down in order to kind of make it manageable. So 5 seems a good idea.
Did you find that, and I found too also that the more plants that I ran, I had to really defold because, the humidity did elevate a little bit more.
Yeah, like I'm defaulting the shit out of these now, and it's more, my humidity's not that bad. It's more about light, like you say. If I let them go too mad, then the like you say, some of the flower sites just aren't getting that light penetration. So
right.
I have to the fan leaf on my plant, it's coming off at flower time.
I mean, I'm the same way. I mean, I strip them down and I probably do it, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 times in flower, probably once they get into flower, probably a week or so after they've been into flower. And then I'll let them go for another week or 2 and then hit them pretty hard again and just kind of judge it. I may pick a few here and there throughout. If I see one that I need to take off, of course, that's a never ending deal. You can always find one you need to grab. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Hang on, coming back to that, because I'm going to touch on that again a little bit later, I think. Keeping with the setup, what about lights? What are you running in there in a 4x2?
I'm running 340 watts. I have one 240 watt HLG QB.
Yeah.
And then I have another 100 watt. I think it was the little Amazon special that was linked in the Discord.
Yeah.
That everybody grabbed up.
So if you were gonna start again, you hadn't got any kit whatsoever, for a 4x2, best option there would be just a straight 320 watt board. Then I take it.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. That's exactly what I would do. I think you really can get I think that 320 watts is key for that, and I think you could pull almost 2 grams per watt out of there with that.
Yeah. No shadow of a doubt. I've just got a 240 in there at the moment, and probably my best run to date was last, and I got maybe 1.9 gram per watt out of that with the 240, which I was lucky, but and good genetics.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so I think, like you say, if you can get that extra light in there, and I'm going to guess that obviously with the 320 board, you're going to have maybe an inch either end of the board between the tent ends.
That's it.
Because it's going to be 900 mil, isn't it? Just over. Yeah, that's solid.
It would be tight, but I mean, still, you're talking about, from wall to wall in that tent.
Yeah.
Having light penetration. So I think that is a big thing.
Yeah. So on that subject of lights, because again, it's something else that I think beginners struggle with hujely. They all, like, quality of the light aside, like forgetting the fact that they run out and buy the cheapest light possible.
Mm-hmm.
Because everybody does it. They go out and think, oh, I'll just pay, I'll get that. When if they pay a bit more at the start, it'll stop them rebuying it, which they're guaranteed to do anyway.
Guaranteed.
But that aside, what about light height? Because that's another big factor. See people doing some weird shit.
Honestly, for me, I'm in that 2x4x4.
Yeah.
my lights are at the top of the tent.
Yeah.
And they will stay there throughout the run for me. I will not lower mine. I just leave them there.
Yeah.
Now I'm running that 340 watts from the time that my seeds pop the soil. So I mean, my lights are on full blast, and they never vary from that.
Yeah, and I'm exactly the same. And so you find from that, because I'm going to assume that, you know, when you look at your plants and then you look at somebody else's who are lowering them and staging them and doing whatever, especially with autos, you're letting your plants kind of grow into that light height. So I'm assuming when you get to like full flower, they're about the right distance away anyway.
They are correct. Yeah. And don't get me wrong. There's times that, you know, I'll have some that may be a little bit leggy that I'll have to, you know, super crop or take care of just to make sure that they won't get too close to the light. But honestly, I've had some that have been probably 6 inches away.
Yeah.
8 inches away, you know, when they've finished and haven't had any issues.
Yeah.
And I know that's not ideal, but I have had that happen in 2 different runs and had no issues, you know, issues with the plants.
And that said as well, Aggie, I'm going to guess at that point, if you've got a 4-foot tent, you've got lights at the top, these are autos, I'm going to assume that the ones that finished 6 inch from the top were huge fucking dick colas.
Yeah, those were those quad grapes.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think you've maybe seen a picture or two of them, but they were large. And that was probably one of, that was the best run to date. It was almost 20 ounces.
Perfect. So kind of like the reason why I'm kind of touching on that is because that light height, letting your autos just stretch up into that light, get as much as possible. You see a lot of people that are kind of overtraining. Again, we'll come back and touch on this, but I think it's important to know that people that seem to fuck with their autos so much, they never get above a foot out of the pot, regardless of the pot size. You know, some people grow these in 5 gal, 10 gal fucking fabric pots, and their plants are still only a foot high because they're dicking with them so much, and they're only getting a yield of maybe 3 ounces off an auto.
Yeah, and I feel like that's what's happening because, you know, early on you see them, you know, they from day 1 or day 2, you know, they're trying to train, they're trying to do this. You know, for me, it's just, hey, let the plant grow for a week or 2 or 10 days, you know, 7 to 10 days. See what it's looking like. Then get in there. You can default a little bit, super crop, open it up. Then let that thing bounce back for another week or 2.
Yeah.
There's always time to pick it, you know, but I was guilty of doing the same thing early on. Yeah. I wouldn't stop fucking with my plants. And, you know, like you said, they were a foot tall with 3 or 4 colas. Yeah, they were big colas, but I was getting 30 grams, 35 grams, you know, 45 grams of plant versus, you know, 100 grams of plant.
Yeah, totally.
And for me, it's just, I had to learn by trial and error. If I could go back, you know, it's one of the things Baz and Bucky always said is just keep it simple. Plant them, let them grow, then take care of them.
There's a lot of I think people kind of ratch around for information, don't they, and say, okay. And one of the things I always kind of makes me laugh is when I hear people kind of, you know, going over justifying why they do what they're doing. They always go, the end statements, my plants love it. And I always kind of think, well, do they? Do they really?
Do they really? That's the question. But, you know, a lot of times what happens is that same person may ask 10 different people the same question, and those 10 different people aren't going to give you the same answer. Maybe a handful of them will. Sure. But now all of a sudden, okay, I've got 5 or 6 different things that I need to try. But, you know, now it's confusing. If you try 3 or 4 of them, you don't know what worked or you don't know what didn't work or what caused that problem.
Yeah. Too many variables, huh?
I think so.
Yeah. There's a lot of, obviously, there's all the paid kind of promotion YouTubers as well, isn't there, on the go at the moment, which doesn't help because people automatically go, they look at these big plants. This guy's growing these enormous plants, but he's being sponsored, by
Right.
by that formula, and they're like, oh yeah, but that works, and well,
Yeah, that's
maybe,
it.
maybe.
Yeah, or you get on Reddit, and the information is just so bad.
Yeah, for sure.
You
Yeah,
know,
some horrendous information on there. It's always CalMag, isn't it?
that is the number one. It's funny you said that because that's what I was fixing to say. That's the number one thing. CalMag. Oh, it's CalMag.
Okay, so kind of going back into kind of like the setup that you've got here is, what about air circulation and environment? So what have you got running on there to make sure your environment's okay in the tent?
I've got 2 of the 6-inch clip-on fans in there, that I've got on the sides just to start for the seedlings, and then I also have the 4-inch filter fan in there running it's on low speed, and right now I'm probably running 45 to 50% humidity and about 80 degrees.
Okay, so the clip-on fans that you've got, where are they pointing? Let's say mid-grow. So we're 3 weeks into our auto run. We're getting a bit of height on the veg. So where are these clip-on fans pointing? Where are they kind of clipped to in the tent?
I'll end up adding another one.
Okay.
Once about 3 weeks in. So the first 2, just to start, I'll add a third one, but one will be up underneath, if not 2. Will be blowing up underneath and one on top.
So that's circulating the air around the stems rather than on the canopy top.
Correct. And I'm, and I'm still, and I still have a little bit on the canopy top.
Yeah.
But I just want to make sure that I do have some on the underside as well as up on the canopy.
Yeah. And these aren't blasting, so the plants are rattling around, I take it. This is just leaf movement that you can see.
Correct. Just a small, nice little wiggle. I mean, they're not banging around, and it's just a nice little wiggle to them. And if they're on low, if I need to feel like I need to turn them up, I will. And I just kind of gauge that by looking at the plants and seeing if there's any wind burn or I'm having any tacoing or just anything going on with the leaves that's telling me one thing or the other.
Yeah. Awesome. And so filtration, you're using just normal 4-inch canister filter then, yeah?
Yep.
Yeah. Super. Okay. So looking at your, I suppose, pots, you're going to be using 2-gallon fabric pots, wasn't it? I think you said
2-gallon fabric pots.
Okay. So what about substrate? What are you using?
I'm using ProMix HP.
Yeah. Okay.
And I really like it. It's kind of thing. We were talking earlier.
Yeah.
About you saying you're using the CalMag and you're in the cocoa.
Yeah.
The ProMix does have a pH adjuster, which also adds a little bit of that CalMag in there.
Yeah.
So not only does it have the mycos, it does have a pH adjuster in that medium.
A little bit. That's the handy bit, isn't it? Yeah, I used to use stuff because you can't get ProMix where I'm at, but there's some stuff called BioBiz Lite, which is, by the sounds of it, pretty similar. It's still got a bit of peat in there, so there's a bit of pH balance a little bit, and like you say, you don't have to CalMag because the cocoa's not sucking it, which it does. But yeah, I stopped. I thought I would blast out cocoa, so I've been using that for a while, and I kind of like it just because. For me, I can overwater it, and I'm a clumsy fuck, so there's no issues with that. Whereas I
can do the same thing. It's hard not to.
Yeah. So ProMix HP gets a thumbs up from Aggie.
Yeah, that's kind of been my go-to. I've ran that actually the whole time. Once Baz told me, what to go, and I think at the time Belanos was actually running the ProMix as well, and. So
yeah, I know Bell's a big fan of it as well, isn't he? I know
he is. He is, and he gave it a big thumbs up, and I ordered it, and he helps me. He helps me get it where I'm at. So big shout out to him.
So that's going to be. It's going to have hardly any nutrients in it to start with, but a little bit.
just very, very little.
Yeah.
And because I'm feeding from day one. So once they pop the soil, I'm feeding that day.
Yeah. Well, that's that nice simple technique, isn't it? There's no fucking level adjustment. This is just you get the feed.
Nope. Yep. You're getting the feed, and if I really need to dial it back, I will. You have some different phenos that are a little finicky, but for the most part, running that blue mat system, it's hard to dial it back for one if the other four are really loving it.
Yeah, sure. So nutrients then. Well, we're on the feed system.
Okay.
So what nutrients are you running at the moment?
I'm running GH Maxi Series, the powder, the 2-part,
Okay.
the Maxi Grow and the Maxi Bloom. And then I am running Beastie Blooms and flower.
Okay. And that's it.
That's it. That's all I'm running. Occasionally, if I need to add some CalMag, I will.
Yeah.
But I haven't used it the last 3 runs.
Okay. So yeah, you were on about like using the blue mat system. So you're filling up your res. So are you just using the recommended dosage on the GH from day one?
Not necessarily that it's recommended. Kind of what I've found is the 2 teaspoons per 5 gallons.
Okay.
To start right off of, right when they pop soil.
Yeah.
And then I'm working my way up to 6 teaspoons per 5 gallons in veg, which would be equivalent to probably right at 1,000 ppm.
Okay.
And I'm using RO water, which is starting at 009 for me.
Yeah. Yeah. So you've got your water RO'd and it's straight in. So it's going to be fucking solid system then, isn't it? Because you're not got a water variable to start with. You just RO in and feed.
Right. Just RO in, and so I know exactly, measure, with knowing the ppm before anything goes in for me it was a big thing, because I know either if I'm too hot, not enough, I'll know exactly. I'm able to take some notes on that and see exactly where I'm at throughout that grow.
Yeah, that's awesome. That saves any dicking around because your pH is going to be fairly stable.
It is, and you kind of know it's okay if I'm adding, 2 teaspoons, I'm going to need 1 teaspoon of up or whatever it may be, and you've got that pretty much honed in. You know exactly where you're going to need to be.
Yeah, and then
I've used that system. I've pretty much used that starting at the 2 teaspoons and working up to 6 on every grow, regardless of the genetics.
Cool. So, and then adding your Beastie Blooms, I'm going to take it, you're adding that at the minute you start getting little cotton ball flowers appearing.
I am. I would say probably, I don't know, maybe week 2 of flower.
Yeah.
Between week 2 and 3 of flower, I'm adding the Beasties. Just adding, I think I'm starting, it's right at 1 teaspoon per 5 gallons. And then I'm working up to 2 teaspoons. And then about the last 2 weeks, about the last week, maybe 7 to 10 days, I'm not giving it any Beasties. Just backing down a little bit on the Maxi Bloom.
Yeah, for sure.
But
So
there's no flush for me.
No, I was going to say your soil's going to be holding enough. That Pro Mix is going to be holding enough by that point anyway for the final finish line.
For that final leg, it'll be taken care of. So I'm just slightly backing down on the bloom.
Okay, so automatic watering, because that's kind of like you've already touched on that you're using, a blue mat system there. So I take it you're selecting that one for anybody that says they're using automatic watering other than any other reason than being lazy and getting rid of hand watering light, aren't they? But I mean, I'm going to suggest that you're probably using that to keep your watering consistent as well. Yeah.
That's it. That's exactly what it is. For me, when I was not using it, I was either underwatered or overwatered. It was hard for me to really dial it in.
Yeah.
And with the blue mats, I found once you set them and after you've really kept an eye on them for several hours to make sure you're not going to have one that's really going to flood it or whatnot, once you get those dialed in after the first 3 or 4 hours and the next couple of days, I feel like that what you're doing, that the pots are just watered so perfectly, that it's hard not to use them.
Yeah. So take it, you're using blue mats, you're going to, one thing we didn't touch on earlier, I suppose, is you're going to have a tray as well, and are you, just in case?
I am. I do have a 2x4 tray up underneath, and sometimes I like to bottom feed as well as using the blue mats. I may take a gallon or two out of the res and bottom feed, once or twice throughout the week, maybe every 3 days, every 4 days. And I've noticed that's been a big benefit as well. It's something that I didn't do when I first started.
Yeah.
It was kind of a trial for me, and I started doing it on the quad grape and had a huge success with it. And I did it again here on the last run of the hard liquors gear with the Spotless Mind and the Cosmic Apprentice, and had another killer run with it. So not sure if I'm onto something with it or not, but it to me, it seems to have an added benefit along with, top feeding with the blue mats.
Yeah, for sure. I kind of watching people use different systems. So I'm a brilliant thief. I wouldn't say I'm an excellent grower by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm a really good thief of people's ideas. So I kind of stalked yourself using the blue mat system, watching the other guys. JSK is kind of like good to watch with his using the auto pot flooding, tray flooding system.
He's killer with that.
Yeah, so I kind of like watched it and thought, all right, okay, humidity is a problem for me, so I'm not 100% on flooding my tray continuously because I would have a huge humidity problem to deal with.
I'm
so
the same as you.
A little bit more effective for me for that, so it keeps the humidity down. But like you as well, I've been tray feeding. Mine started as an accident, funnily enough, because I thought I'd got my blue mats dialed in, and one of them was just dripping very, very nicely, but it was actually slightly blocked. It was nipped. And I came back the next morning, and it had unblocked itself and filled the tray. Tray was, fortunately, I had the tray, and it was 3 inches deep, right to the top of the tray. So I just knocked it off and let them drink it out. And yeah, they seem to respond to that. Because my trays, I'm running a 2x4, but I've got two 2x2s. Side by side, so the left-hand tray had flooded, the right-hand tray hadn't. And when I looked at the plant growth, they seemed to be, I don't know, maybe it was just me, they seemed to be about an inch bigger.
I think there's something to it.
Yeah. So I don't know. So I've been doing the same as you, occasional bottom feed, as long as the humidity doesn't get out of control.
Yep, that's an issue for me too. So that's why I'm not doing it all the time.
Yeah, it's a bitch. I just don't. I'm lazy, and I don't want the added expense of running dehumidifiers and air conditioning units. And
right, it can get expensive.
It can, man.
You just got to keep it simple. Just do it once or twice a week. It'd be all good.
So, kind of dialing back to, we've gone through the environment. We've got that as simple as we can. Starting off with the actual grow itself. So what about germination? So we're starting a new run. What are you going to start, by the way, your next run? What are you running at the minute?
I'm running the Galactic Reserve by Belenos.
And auto regs, weren't they?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So let's use that. So what about germination? How are you germing? Because, again, there's like 1,000 different methods of germing.
So for these, I actually just dropped them in a small cup of water.
Okay.
And they sunk within 24 hours. And then at the 48-hour mark, they all had tails. And so for me, I as soon as those had tails in the water, I took those out, put them straight into the medium, put the same little cup style that I was using to germ them in, put them over as a humidity dome.
Okay, so these are just little clear plastic
Yep.
normal
Just a little
disposable
clear
cup.
plastic cup, almost like, I don't know, maybe a little 6-ounce cup, just a clear one, and put it in there on the medium and kind of push it down in the medium a little bit.
So when you're saying it's got a tail, this isn't a 20 millimeter tail. This is just showing itself, I imagine, out the seed.
Just showing, yeah. It's
Yeah.
just as long as it's cracked and showing a little bit of the tail, that thing, it's out of the water and it's in the medium.
And are you I take it your medium's pre-soaked at that point.
It
as well.
is. I usually do it. 24 hours in to germinate those seeds. So once those seeds have been soaking in that water for 24 hours, I'll have all of my pots, completely saturated. I have a big deep sink.
Nice for you to confess about your penis size there, Aggie.
Yeah, right.
Actually growing.
Now we finally break the ice there with that one. No, but I've got a big sink, so I'll put them in there and just kind of fill it halfway with water, and then also just make sure that they're really good and fully saturated.
Yeah.
In that way that when I do drop those seeds in, it's ready to go. Typically, I have the blue mats already in. As soon as I drop the seeds and put the cups in, I normally have the blue mats in, ready to roll.
Yeah.
I recently moved the tent and everything back from my cousin's house to my house yesterday, so I haven't got the blue mat set back up yet. That's something that I'm going to have to do tomorrow. But I'll have to, re-soak the medium, just make sure that it's completely saturated before I put those in, and then be ready to rock and roll.
Awesome. And that way, with the soil being saturated already, there's not going to be any movement in the seed when you start watering it. It's not going to fucking drop another 2 inches, because that's another thing that happens, isn't it? I see people kind of dropping these seeds into dry cocoa, then watering it, and watching that seed just fuck off 2 inches down into the pot.
Yeah, I mean, and then there's nothing, then you've basically spoiled that run once it's too deep.
Yeah. So we've done the kind of germin, watering seedlings. So you're pretty much straight into the blue mats. You're not hand watering for a period of time.
No.
Or you wait until those kind of. So what time when are you taking off your humidity domes? What size is the plant under there before you're whipping those off?
Soon as that baby's sticking out of the soil.
Okay.
Soon as it's sticking out of the soil, I'm taking those off and making sure those blue mats are ready to go. I'll dial those in to where there's just a drip hanging. It's not dripping, but there's just a drip hanging once that medium is fully saturated. And then I'll continue to check probably for 30 or 45 minutes for those, every 30 or 45 minutes on those blue mats, just to make sure, kind of like what you said, you had one that was blocked. You just never know. I like to open them all the way up at first to where they're completely pouring out, and then dial them back.
Yeah, totally.
Just to make sure that there's not an issue.
So I was using Megacrop and using the 1-part Megacrop. So it congeals a little bit in your res. So I have a power head in my res which circulates it and stops it kind of gluing back together. First run, not an issue. Went to do my second run, and I was fucking lazy and didn't clean the little rubber tubes on each blue mat. So that's when I had my blockage on my second run, and it's 100% my fault. I should have washed them out in between runs, really. I'm going to assume the GH is a little bit less prone to blocking, but do you kind of clean out your system? The mats.
It's a little bit less prone. Now, I do still get some of that.
Yeah.
But I believe it was you and I that was talking about that. I like to, after every run, I like to run, put them in one of those deep sinks and run hot water through them.
Yeah.
And clean out all the lines. I do rinse the res. Actually, clean the res out, run hot water, soak it. Actually take the the gravity bits, you know, where it's gravity fed out of the bottom
Yeah.
of the res. I take those out, soak those. I just want to make sure, because I had the same issue where I didn't clean them, and not only did I have a blockage, but I had deficiencies. I just couldn't get it dialed in. I didn't know what the issue was.
Yeah.
Until I went to clean those out 2 runs later and saw everything that came out of the lines.
Brown shit everywhere.
That's exactly what it was. It was just brown shit and just kept rolling out. And it was just,
Yeah.
you know, it was kind of irked me. And that's why I'll take the extra 30 minutes and, you know, run the hot water through them and clean those lines and clean out the res.
So we're feeding simple system right from the off. Plants are getting to, I don't know. I suppose what I'm going to ask now is about the first time you're going to train these autos, because it is a bugbear for me at the minute. The reason why it's a bugbear for the minute, I've seen quite a few in Brothers in Farms as well as outside of people that are over fucking with, you know, they're using, like, I'm a huge advocate, by the way, of I know you just hand do it these days, but JSK super croppers, you know, those plastic ones for helping bend the leaf. But
I'm a big fan as well.
yeah,
I used those for the first time this last run.
Yeah.
And had very good success with them.
Yeah. So I've seen like a couple of people, and there's maybe fucking 20 of those super croppers on a 6-inch plant. You know, and it's like, it's just too much. You know, it's just way too much fucking with it. So what height, I suppose, is at optimum? Assuming we're training the plant and we're bending that main stem, the point of bending that main stem is to get our second and third node to kind of explode into making a more primary branches, because that's the point of training, isn't it? To kind of bend over the original and let the others shoot. So what size a plant are you letting that run to before you do that?
For me, it's normally around, you know, the 5th or 6th node. Okay. And that's probably 2 weeks in, 14 days in. I'll give it a good defol and a super crop and use those super croppers and open it up. But I'm going to let the plant do its thing early on.
Yeah. And by having your lights fairly high up, the plant has been stretching out. So we're going to have maybe, I don't know, heading towards 1.5 inches in between each node.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
You're gonna be able to get in there and work. And kind of what I found, if you do it early on or too early, is you don't have a lot of room to work with.
Yeah. And some of those kind of phenotypes as well, I'm kind of thinking of one in mind, you know, maybe I hate to say the word indica heavy because it's Afghani heavy, but some of them are going to be squatter and smaller plants naturally. So you've got to wait till those stems are workable. There's no point trying to get in there and fuck about.
Right. At that time, you just may want to, you know, some people like to leaf tug. For me personally, I just like to take those big fans off.
Yeah.
And on those shorter squatty plants, maybe not necessarily do so much super cropping. It's just, let's just open it up a little bit and let it get a little bit taller, you know.
So really we're looking at, don't fuck with your plant until the 5th node and keeping it a good, you know, 5-6 inches high.
Personally, I've had good experience with it. You know, like you said, there's a ton of other ways to do it. And like, you know, we've seen in our Discord, you know, sometimes that there's a chance that fucking with it early on, you're going to stun it and you're going to get that, you know, 8 to 12 inch plant.
Yeah. And that's what I've seen, is especially on Reddit. I was watching some guys kind of posting on there, and he'd bent his plant over, and it was, you know, we're talking a 3-inch plant. It was bent right over, and loads of guys are like, "Oh, it's never too early to LST," and I'm thinking, and your plant is going to be a midget, you know.
Right. Right. And that's, you know,
I know we can stunt plants, can't we, by overwatering and underwatering? But with an auto, you know, that whole thing is, if you trigger it into flowering too early, and it's stressed into flower too early, there's no going back at that point.
That's the key right there. And you hit the nail on the head. If you stress it into flowering early, so if you're fucking with that thing from day one and you're fucking with it every day, it's going to flower in 14 days. it's going to flower in 16 days, something like that, somewhere in that vicinity. But you're not going to give it time. Like you said, you've got 2 quad grapes right now that are on day 57 that, I mean, they look almost 2 to 3 feet tall and they still haven't started to flower.
Yeah, they're monsters.
But it's kind of going back to what we were talking about early, keeping it simple, not doing too much, letting the plants work, going in every once in a while, taking defoliant and doing some things, but really sitting back and looking at how good a job that these breeders have done.
For sure. So after you've done your initial bend, you've done a little defol, perhaps if it needs it. After that, defoliation and that kind of attention of super cropping is what are you kind of doing at that point? And when we say super cropping, we're meaning kind of a 90-degree bend without snapping. Am I right?
And there's times that I'll pinch mine and don't necessarily bend them, but I'll just pinch them until I hear or until I feel a nice little pop and leave them just to get them knuckled up.
That old school Carl Cushman pop.
Yep.
Yeah.
You go feel the little pop.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I've snapped my fair share.
Yeah. Yeah. Tape those fuckers back on quick.
That's exactly right. I got a little roll of electrical tape sitting on top of the tent.
Yeah, me and you both.
Yeah, that's the oh shit. That's the oh shit tape.
The oh shit tape. Yeah, I've got some fucking green and yellow oh shit tape to make me feel better.
Yeah, there you go.
It doesn't stand out as much when I look in the tent.
That's exactly right.
Okay, so we've got our first super crop done. Bent this main stem over. Our side stems are kind of bushing out. So I take it at that point where again we're not over fucking with it. We're going to revisit it in a week's time. I take it.
Yeah, 7 to 10 days. I'm going to revisit, and probably the first thing I'll do is defol.
Yeah.
And then look to see, and then just look at my canopy. And for me, the whole goal is to have an even canopy. So I'm not super cropping every branch at that point.
Yeah.
I may only be super cropping 3 or 4 branches to even out the canopy, and now I'm going to let it ride.
Yeah, and I think that's the gold, and I think that's where people are kind of missing in confidence or overconfident, because I've seen some people and they're super cropping every fucking branch. There's like 5 or 6 super croppers there, bent right over, and it isn't about that. It's about letting those kind of extend and over time getting that even of canopy. I take it.
That's it. That's what I found that has worked the best. Is like we were talking about. Don't do every one.
Yeah.
You may only need to do one. You may defol and say, okay, this, I need to super crop this one right here, and that's it. And I would let the canopy go for another week, and then there may be 5.
Sure. So we all know, because we've heard 2 people say, is that everybody says it's that bounce back, because they really do, don't they? Is that once you've kind of super cropped, bent your plants over, they don't half bloom back up. It's like shit. And I know with quad grape recently for me, the amount of defoliation just became a fucking chore because there was so much after super cropping them.
They're so responsive. I feel like you're just creating a highway to those bud sites when you super crop. And like you said, sometimes the bounce backs in 6 hours, you can see a completely different plant. You have them bent over, and you see some of the time lapses that guys have posted in the Discord, and the bounce back time is incredible. And you being one of them, it's just insane how well those plants respond to it.
For sure. And I think first time you're super cropping an auto, it's a bit like, oh shit, this looks brutal.
That's exactly right. And I'll never forget, the first time I was actually FaceTiming with Baz, and he's like, okay, right there, grab it and pinch it and bend it over. And, he was like, did you feel the pop? And I did, and it's kind of just like hanging there, dangling over. And I'm thinking, this can't be good. And he said, just let me know what it looks like in the morning. And, you know, I came back in the morning and it was standing straight up. And I was like, man, that's pretty incredible.
Huge amount of bloom growth off those, off the vegging as well. Eh?
It is. It's insane.
Okay, so we've done our kind of basic thing. We've got our canopy. We've maybe got 5 or 6 shoots now, what are going to be kind of main fucking dick size, seeing as we're on the theme of dicks. Big dick fucking colas they're going to head to.
There you go.
So they're going to shoot out as well, because we're still not blooming yet, but they're going to produce side shoots as well, those kind of stems. So I take it at this point, this is when you're thinking about training the underside of that canopy and defoliating anything that's not of use.
That's it. I like to do a little bit of I guess what you would like to say called lollipopping. I take off the unders that, to me, that are not getting any light, that are not going to produce, you know, quality bud sites, that are going to be larvae.
Yeah.
You know, I'll snip those, take those off, clean up the underside, open it up a little bit. That way I can get some light penetration all the way through. You know, I kind of want to be able to see the substrate from the top of the canopy once it's starting to fill in.
Yeah.
Just to make sure that I am getting enough light penetration if I do keep some of the lowers.
Yeah, and I've seen other people kind of doing that, and they're not letting the light penetrate. So they're lollipopping the complete underside, but they're leaving all the fans on the top. And so midway through flower, they've got this lovely kind of even top. They've got a nice level canopy. They've lollipopped the underside, so we've got no kind of issues around moisture building up, got ventilation. But they've not removed a lot of the top fan leaves, so there's no light penetration going through that canopy. So they just end up with some golf ball, decent nugs on the top, but everything else is gone.
Yeah, it kind of defeats the purpose when that happens. You know, when you're going to do that, you really have to make sure that the canopy's open at the top, that you have to take those fans off, open those bud sites up, and make sure that you do get that good penetration.
Yeah, I don't think people realize, you know, you've got a 6-inch cola and you've got a fan leaf 3 inches from the top. It's nice and broad. It's just a big umbrella to getting light at that flower site below. You know, they're wondering, why don't I have dense nugs? And it's all about the light. That's it.
That's it.
There's no magic feed. They don't need to feed it fucking kelp from fucking, I don't know, kelp from space for $60 for fucking 60 mils.
Right.
You know? Yeah.
Right. It doesn't. You don't. I mean, if you can just open it up, snip a few of those fans off, and you know, you hear a lot of people, oh, well, they're the solar panels. Well, in flower, they're blocked. Correct. There you go. There you go. And in flower, they're blocking those bud sites, like what you were talking about. Take those off, open them up, and now all of a sudden, you've got 3 or 4 6-inch dicks because you're getting that light penetration.
And I think that's that difference, isn't it? You want to be able to kind of look at your plant and see that you've got. That's where that extra gram weight comes from. Is defoliating enough to get the light in there and let those kind of lower flowers extend and meet the top flowers. It just should all be one big, nice long cola at that point with a lot less visible leaves.
And you know, personally, I think you need to pull your plants out of the tent when you're defoliating them. Pull them out, spin them, look at them from the top, look at them from a different angle.
100%.
A lot of times, you know, the defol's done in the tent, or you know, you're getting in there and maneuvering them in the tent, and you're not really seeing them all the way around the plant.
Yeah. So we're recommending just get them out, lift them out of the tent, put them on a table or something somewhere next door, so you can get a good look at it. Yeah.
That's
and I suppose
exactly right.
Getting him out as well, all of those kind of ones on the back row of your tent or whatever, they're going to be growing into the tent wall, aren't they? And you just don't want those kind of moisture traps, do we?
And there's times, you know, where I'll move the plants around.
Yeah.
You know, maybe I don't keep them in the same spot, you know, depending on how they're growing. Maybe I'll move those around, little smaller ones in the middle, bigger ones on the sides, so they're not kind of overtaking.
Perfect. And I've got to say, giving them a twist now and again, it maybe just does change the light penetration again a little bit to some different areas. Yeah.
Yep.
So, at what stage do we stop doing? Because I know you kind of said earlier about you do some main defoliation, and then occasionally when you're sticking your head in your tent, and I just can't help it. I stick my head in the tent. I think, yep, that one's got to go. That one's got to go. That one's got to go. So,
I
other
think
than those,
everybody does that.
yeah, those daily light kind of trims, do you have a time where you think, right, okay, this is another one last heavy defol? So at what stage, I suppose, is your last good butchery session?
I would probably say about a week before they head into flower.
Okay, yeah. And
And
after
then
that, you're picking.
I'll really strip them down and break their backs and get them ready. And then probably I'll let them go for another 10 days, maybe 2 weeks, and then do another decent one. Once I start getting some good cotton balls, I'll open up some more sites and then I start adding that beastie blooms in at that point.
Perfect. So when you're saying you do it once hard, break the backs, get them bent over, we're doing it again shortly afterwards, and that's to counter a fact that these are going to bloom again and spread leaves everywhere. Yeah. Okay.
Correct.
So we're dealing
Just
with
that they're
bounce
going to
back.
end up blowing back up.
Yeah.
They're going to end up hitting that stretch, blowing back up. And I want to make sure a lot of that is canopy control.
Yeah.
With me having the lower tent height, it may be a little different if you're having, you're running a 6-foot tent. You may not have to do it as quick.
Yeah, like I kind of cheat, like I've got a 6.5-foot tent and my lights are at the top, same as you, just let them run. But I have a 1.5-foot table inside the tent because I'm old and I don't like bending over. So I'm probably a similar height to you on the 4-foot, really, from scratch. It's just mine are elevated slightly having a table in the tent because I don't like bending over.
Smart.
Yeah. Lazy.
Whichever way you want to look at it.
I find lazy's best. Okay, so we're in a flower now. You're hitting them with the beastie blooms, and basically at that point, then, because we're auto feeding, you're on a bloom out system. It's just doing its fucking thing, then.
That's it. Just sit back and let it take off.
Smoke a bowl.
That's it. Sit back, smoke a bowl, let it take off, and let it do its thing.
Okay. So, and you're just riding that newt train right to the end, and then you said that you dropped off a week prior or something like that on the beasties.
Yeah, on the beasties, about a week prior, I'll cut the beasties out, and I'm running the beastie with the maxi bloom. So what I'll do is I'll dial down the maxi a little bit, right around probably 3 to 4 teaspoons per 5 gallons, and then I'll run that all the way up until the time that I chop.
Cool. And that way, I suppose, we're just saving a little bit of coin, aren't we? We're all cheapskates. We're saving just a little bit of money on newts that we're not.
Yeah, just a little bit. I feel like that there's still enough left in the medium at that point for 7 days. Because sometimes I'll be adding to half a res, so there may still be some in the res.
Yeah. So, chop time. And I think, again, it's like, when do we chop? And the famous fucking saying that you'll see on Reddit and every other fucking group that you go in is 2 more weeks.
2 more weeks.
2 more weeks in CalMag, Fucking hell. So at what point, I take it you're using just like what are you using to kind of look at the traits?
I've got just one of those USB scopes. It's 1,000 times scope off of Amazon that I'm plugging into the computer. And really when I'm checking middle of the plant first.
So when you say middle of the plant, kind of narrowing everything down to as most basic as possible, what do you mean by the middle of the plant? So if we've got are we talking a bit down from the original, what was the canopy, or how far are we
I would just say not your main colas, not at the top of your main colas.
Yeah.
That you have. But looking at some colas that are underneath that, just to kind of see where I'm at. And normally for me, I like around 30 to 40% amber. It varies, per person, but I like a little bit more amber myself. So
Me
I'll
too.
let the plants run a little bit longer. And there's times where I'll even do a staggered harvest. I may chop 4 or 5 of the main colas off and let the others ride for another 4 or 5 days.
Yeah, and that's kind of interesting point there with autos as well, isn't it? Is I'm assuming when you're having to do a staggered harvest, the reason for that is because we've either got so much flower sites lower down that haven't got that light penetration because you've either rammed your tent to the
Yep,
max.
that's it.
Because assuming we're defolding anyway, it's just super tight tent that we've packed in, and that's maybe where I'm kind of heading at the minute. I was kind of lucky with the last one. I had not a lot of laugh and a lot of solid bud, but I'm probably over ramming mine ever so slightly.
And that's where when I had to do the staggered harvest, I was, I had ran at the time 8 plants in 2 gallons, and I was in over my head.
Yeah. And that gallon size, it kind of, I'm backtracking here, but I'm just kind of clarifying, on this kind of keeping it simple theme, is 2 gallons. Certainly for me, kind of using 2 gallons, by letting your plants stretch into your lights, following that kind of keeping it simple method, you're growing monster-sized plants out of 2 gallons. There isn't really a need for a root ball bigger than that. I think that's where 2 gallons, because you see people go, I like to use 5 gallons. But their plants don't seem to be any bigger than mine, on 2.
Right. And I agree. I've kind of found, I ran some 3 gallons. I've ran some 1 gallons, settled in on 2 gallons. I just felt like that was really what I was trying to do in the 2x4. And I could really stack those.
Yeah.
3 in the back, 3 in the front, and still be able to spread those out enough to have a really nice canopy, enough room, and still have good air circulation in there as well.
Awesome. So we've got to that. We're gonna chop. So I take it you're saying 40%, 30 to 40% amber to get the chop. Now, what about this flushing shit? Are we flushing?
Hell no.
Hell no.
No, hell no, we're not flushing.
Okay.
Hell no. I mean, personally, no flushing.
Yeah.
I just not for me.
No.
Some say otherwise, but
Well, in
I've had
soil,
yeah, maybe so.
yeah, it just doesn't work in soil mediums, though, does it? This kind of whole flushing thing is kind of irrelevant. I
Very
think it
much
comes
so.
from the kind of, I won't say hippie ethos for it because I'm kind of old myself and I was around them, but it's that kind of science is that I'm putting all these chemicals into this magical weed and I don't want this taste and it's all about the terps. But personally, you can taste the difference. It's back to that thing of my plants love it.
Yeah, my
It's
plants
generic
love
excuse, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And people say,
funny.
"Oh, you can tell the difference in the terps." Well, maybe you should try some different genetics.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. If you're having to flush just to taste the difference in the terps, you may need to look at another genetics company.
For sure. So, what about curing? Because again, usually if people are on their first couple of runs, that impatience to kind of get that fucking weed lit up is phenomenally difficult.
I guess that could be kind of a double-edged sword, depending on number one, when do you need weed, and do you need it now, right? Or can you afford? Normally when I chop my plants, I fully hang the whole plant. Try to have it anywhere from 65 to 70 degrees and 50 to 55% humidity, and I'm hanging anywhere from 6 to 9 days, somewhere in that range. And then I'm trimming, and at that point, they're going into mason jars for me.
Okay.
And I use the Bovada packs.
Yeah.
Personally, I do 58%.
Okay.
I'm using those, and and I'm burping probably once a day for the first, I don't know, 10 days to 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And then I am leaving those jars sealed for 30 days, ideally. I do have some quad grape that I've had jarred for 90 days now that I'm probably going to vacuum seal up for long-term storage. But, you know, personally, the longer I can let it cure, I feel like the better the smoke that I'm getting.
Yeah, it's an interesting topic, isn't it? Because you see a lot of people kind of going, "I've got some year-old, you know, it's a year and a half old." I've found kind of 6 months. After that, I can't tell the fucking difference. I've got some at 6 months, and I'm thinking this shit is fucking awesome. But after that, you know, when I'm into 10 months old, I can't tell the difference personally. It's maybe just me. I don't have a lot.
I'm the same way. I haven't. That's what I was gonna say. You know, I mean, if you know, ideally, if you can let it go, you know, 3 to 6 months, killing it. But at that point, I think it's ran its course, you know, and then it's about how well are you going to store it after that? You know, are you going to keep it? Are you going to keep it at, you know, at the right humidity? Is it going to be stored properly? How are you going to store it? Because you can cure it for that long and not store it right, and then have it go to shit.
Yeah, oh, for sure. I lost half a jar to some mold, and I was kicking myself. And the reason I did that, I had that many jars, which you can't knock. You know, when you've got 20 jars to burp, it's a happy fucking time. But I'd not burped them all. Thought I'd burped one, you know, hadn't been burping it. Moisture had got in there, and I lost it. And at that point, I thought, fuck the jars, and I got myself a 20-liter food grade screwable top air seal bucket, and my whole fucking lot goes in there now. I don't bother with the jars. I cure it in the bucket.
Nice.
I just burp the one big bucket, give it a little gentle rotation, a shake, burp it again, and they just stay in that big fucking bucket until I want to start the cure. And at that point, well, I keep curing in the bucket for a long time, and then they just go straight in the vac seal.
Yep, that's it. That vac seal is your best friend.
And those, mine, I don't know what yours, mine's just a cheap fucking 20 quid vac sealer off Amazon.
I got a Food Saver. I think that's the brand of it. I think that's what it's called.
Yeah.
It may be, I don't know, it was maybe 70 to $100 or something like that.
Ooh, you've gone fancy there, Aggie.
Hey, it's well worth it.
Yeah. Fucking right. I think people don't realize as well, they get to their first grow and they're like, hang on a minute, these guys are like saying they need to cure their buds for 60 days, 30 days, you know, and they're in there for shitloads after that. But it works after your first and second grow, doesn't it? Because if you've got a successful first grow, okay, you might dip into that early. But by the time you hit the second successful grow, you're going to have a fucking stash built up by that point.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. It's going to take you a few runs to get it underneath your belt. Once you get those few runs underneath your belt, then
you're going to be drowning in weed.
That's it. You're going to be really needing that vacuum sealer for that long-term storage, or unless you're like Baz and you smoke, you know,
Everything.
30 blunts. Yeah, 30 blunts a day. Then it's really hard to keep up with that demand.
Awesome. Okay, mate. Well, it's been brilliant to talk to you and get a kind of that keep it simple case method, start to finish. Hopefully, it might just save a couple of people's plants and get them a bit of extra weight. And I think we've kind of covered a lot of questions. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I said, man, I hope it does.
Yeah,
I hope it does. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me on.
Hey, man, you are welcome. It's been good. It's been a long time coming.
Definitely.
Any shout outs to any of the guys in the group? I know you've kind of shouted out Baz and Bell already.
Yeah, I definitely want to give a shout out to Bucky, JSK, and Mook for sure.
Yeah, man. Yeah, Mook grows some fucking fire as well.
Fire.
I'm always jealous of Mook's. Yeah, every time I look, he's always got, it's like a Bucky's breath or it's something fucking mean, and it is a bush. You know, he's always got one big bastard on the go.
He's definitely doing it.
Awesome.
He's definitely doing it. And a big shout out to Bucky for that Bucky's breath. It's It's some of the best smoke that I've ever had.
I'm gonna have to dive back in their photos at some point. I have got some of Jats, and I keep meaning because I've been watching a lot of the guys growing the black lemon cake,
Mm-hmm.
and that looks fucking good. So I had to buy some of that. It's fitting it in. Only got a small tent.
That's it. I know that's right.
Yeah, man. That's the photos.
I know
Okay,
that's
buddy.
right.
Well, good to speak to you again, mate, and take care.
Yes, sir, brother. Sounds good, man. See ya.